Superman's monologue, his big speech to Lex Luthor in the new James Gunn Superman film, has bothered me since I saw the film. I'm going to explain why it's truly awful and is an example of poor writing and a poor understanding of situation and character. First, I will say that David Corenswet puts the dialogue over very well. His performance is good, but it's not suitable dialogue for Superman in the context of what the character has gone through in the film. So he says to Lex Luthor,
"That is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone."
Yeah, except you do have super strength, which is important to not forget that. You can fly, you're super fast, I would put those as your greatest actual strengths myself.
I get scared. I wake up every morning and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other and I try to make the best choices I can.
Ultimately, this scene feels more about delivering an emotional catharsis for the audience and to try to tug at the heartstrings by any means necessary. The music, the shouting, and rah-rah, I get it. It's easy to get caught up in that. But, dear viewer, take a step back and push away that lump in your throat, however tempting it may be, and ask yourself if it's a feeling that is truly earned or appropriate. Don't let yourself be emotionally manipulated. Gunn's goal here is to bring a tear to your eye, remember that, but does it come at the expense of the character and what he's been through?
I screw up all the time, but that is being human. And that's my greatest strength.
Look, there's billions of people on the planet who get scared, mess up, don't know what to do, try to do their best, blah, blah. But they can't fly or smash through walls. They're not invincible. Now, you could say, in addition to his superhuman strength and all of that, the more important aspect of Superman is his wisdom and discernment, knowing when to stop himself, when to use his powers, how to use his powers. He could go too far. He could allow rage to control him. He could accidentally kill someone. He must learn to use his powers for good. He must learn restraint, to not kill, etc. And that's all part of the character's growth and maturity, understanding the sacrifices that he must make as a superhero. That takes maturity. If there's no limits to his abilities, then he must apply those limits to himself. So this is one reason why this speech annoys me, because it's generic and doesn't actually unpack or explore any of the truly interesting, compelling aspects of the challenges that are specific only to Superman, because he's one of a kind. Well, technically, although in this film he has a clone, there's two other people who are at least as strong as he is. But anyway, the point is, when I first heard this speech, I just found that it came across as like a victim of bullying who's trying to stand up for himself and trying to act emotionally tough when he isn't. But he just sounds like he's trying to convince himself rather than Lex Luthor. Now, I could go on about how Luthor's emotional reaction of crying like a baby is equally as abysmal and out of character, and it is. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just focusing on Superman. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this was in light of a behind-the-scenes clip that was released a few days ago. You'll find it online. I'm not going to play the whole thing, where James Gunn and David Corenswet get into this, and they have a back and forth. And Corenswet is unsure about what he's being asked to do in this scene and how he should deliver it. And he seeks clarification from Gunn.
If I say, that's what it is to be human, that feels like I'm trying to prove it still as opposed to I really know it.
Bingo. Nail on the head. This is exactly how I felt when I first watched it. Superman comes across as brittle, insecure, and needing to explain himself. Now, Corenswet asks him about how Superman should be feeling at this point, since the truth about the recording came out from his Kryptonian parents about what they really wanted him to do when he went to Earth.
There are feelings and there are thoughts. Your feelings about feeling bad are okay. It's not wrong for you to feel that way.
So now you understand the thinking that went into the writing of that scene, which is very like modern therapy, in my opinion. What you're getting here sounds like stock psychiatry. This is the kind of thing that's talked about in cognitive behavioral or talk therapy. You know, the relationship between your thoughts and feelings and actions. But what I want to know is, where's the Stoicism? If you're going to talk about being human, why not specifically talk about being a man? Because not everything is about expressing your emotions all the time. After all, Superman may be a Kryptonian, but he's also a man. And a good man and a strong example of being a man would be one who is in emotional control and who can be stoic. Things can hurt you, but you don't have to show it. This speaks to the emotionally coddled age we live in, where everything is about, displays of emotional diarrhea. It bothered me in Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness, where Spock, who's supposed to have emotional control, is just going postal and getting furious at the drop of a hat and becoming violent. That kind of writing lacks nuance, understanding of masculinity, understanding of the character, and it fails to display an important part of being a man, which is mastery of oneself. Yes, we've seen Superman get emotional and even angry in the past, and every time he did, do you notice there was always a negative consequence that followed? Previous versions of Superman, be they Dean Cain, Henry Cavill, or Christopher Reeve, would not have delivered this particular monologue. This is modern Superman. That's my issue. It can work for another character, but not for Superman. It all comes across as impulsive and weak. And for those people who say, well, Corrin Sweat's Superman is younger and immature. Firstly, I don't buy this excuse, because this character has been publicly Superman for 3 years at this stage in the film. But also, I'm wise to this excuse, because exactly the same excuse has been doled out over on Star Trek Strange New Worlds to explain why Spock is written like an emotionally stunted, awkward moron who's played for the butt of the jokes on a regular basis. Oh, this is a younger version of Spock. That's why he's nothing like Spock, yeah? No. Occam's razor says it's just bad writing, folks. Now, believe it or not, this scene was even worse. The following line was deleted.
And every time you say that I don't belong, it hurts my feelings. That's being human.
Oh, God, that was pathetic. It hurts my feelings. Again, just like so many modern sci-fi shows where we have characters breaking down, crying, and talking about their feelings in corridors, this speaks to a generation raised on feels over reals. Superman should be rising above Luthor and his taunts and showing how to best him psychologically as well as physically. Whatever happened to that thing they used to say when I was a kid? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So you can see why this line was removed, because it's eye-rolling for Superman to talk about how Luthor has hurt his fifis. But as people have pointed out, this entire monologue is tell, don't show, when it should be show, don't tell. Superman is talking about his development as opposed to his development being shown in his actions. Now, the last point I want to make about this scene is something that I haven't heard anyone else talk about. Superman is delivering this very almost conciliatory monologue to Luthor, explaining himself, explaining his feelings, and why Luthor is wrong about him, and about how Superman deserves respect as being as human as anyone. What bothers me immensely is that there's a failure to understand this conversation in the context of the situation Superman has been put in by Lex Luthor. Because a few minutes earlier in the film, Luthor tried to murder Superman in a cold, clinical, and calculated fashion by having his chief henchwoman suck the air out of his lungs and suffocate him to death. And here we have Superman now making what sounds like an impassioned plea to the man who almost succeeded in killing him. And it's like we're kind of watching an abusive relationship play out, where the victim comes back to his abuser and it's like, why don't you love me? It's like a hair's breadth away from that kind of energy. Now, this dialogue could have worked very well if it had been delivered by someone else in the movie, like someone who cared about Superman. Like, for example, this could have worked contextually far better had it have been delivered by Lois Lane on behalf of Superman, if she had talked about him from her perspective, about his vulnerability and his humanity. But coming from Superman himself is embarrassing, and I feel sorry for him. I feel pity for him, which I shouldn't, because he's demanding respect and understanding from his attempted murderer, and he shouldn't have anything to reproach himself about. He has nothing to explain about himself to a murderous psychopath like Lex Luthor. Who cares what Luthor thinks or says? Superman is more affected by Luthor's words, calling him a piece of you-know-what alien, than the fact that he tried to kill him moments earlier. So, what would have happened if this was Christopher Reeve's Superman is that he would have entered the room, rounded up everyone in 2 seconds, apprehended Luthor, tied him up. After Luthor's corruption is exposed, he would have handed him over to the authorities, and done it with a smirk on his face, as if to say, better luck next time, Luthor. You never got to me. And let Luthor shout and rave about it, while Superman flies away undefeated. Superman doesn't really get the mic drop moment here, does he? This James Gunn Superman is more like an adolescent still trying to find his way. And there's just too much of that on TV. And we need examples of men who have already made it. I think that's what boys need to see, right? This isn't supposed to be Superboy, it's Superman. And the emphasis needs to be on man. So those are my thoughts on this scene. It's going to be a controversial one because I know a lot of you really love it. And to some people, this is like one of the centerpiece emotional moments in the film. I'm interested in your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, share the video out there. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.